Welcome to another Indie Dev Showcase here on the channel, highlighting the many game demos and developer submitted games we play here. If you submit a game for a future stream and video, please get in touch. But we are starting off with the game Nadir, and this is from the developers of, I think it was called Alder's Blood, which was kind of like a roguelike, almost like more tactical in nature. And with Nadir here, they're going for kind of Dante's Inferno meets Slay the Spire with a heaping dose of metal, as you probably just heard there. So the idea is that we are trying to get as far down the circles of hell as we can using our various sinners. The entire aesthetic of the game is kind of drawn from that Dante's Infernal iconography in terms of skulls, lots of very metal-looking monsters, and so on. In terms of the deck building, how it works is each party member brings with them different cards. When you start a turn, you'll get action points or mana points, however you want to call them, that you can use between all three characters. Once you're out of points, you then switch your turn over to the enemy, and you rinse and repeat until they die or you die. So each character comes with different abilities. You have one character who can put a taunt on other characters, and the challenge again is figuring out how do you synergize with the various abilities and make use of them to deal with each enemy. Now, with that said, from what I played of the demo, my main concern was that it didn't feel, I think, as advanced in terms of the deck building or general card-based strategies. Now, again, keep in mind, this was a demo for, I think, just before their Kickstarter was announced, which would be in 2021. So I don't know where it is at as of this time. But with a lot of the kind of deck building roguelikes that are out there, I think they're going to run into this problem of how do they measure up against stuff like Slay the Spire and Monster Train. And from the demo, it was kind of hard to make out the unique selling point, with exception again to the aesthetic. So I would say if you aren't tired of deck building roguelikes, then at least give this one a check. The demo is still up on Steam. But if you're hoping for a brand new take, I don't know if Nadir is really going to get that far. For our next game, we have Neon Beasts. Now, the footage that you are seeing is taken from a Kickstarter demo, and I believe the game is still in development as we speak, but it does not have a Steam store page. So this, in a way, is kind of like, what if Hotline Miami combined with Doom? You are trapped in the dystopian 1980s Miami, where the city has become taken over by gang law, and you play as mysterious beasts, whose mission it is to kind of bring the city back by killing one gang member at a time. In terms of the gunplay, how this works is that as you kill or hit enemies, you'll regain kind of your neon power. That's that bar or the different pips you see at the bottom of the screen. When enemies are stunned, you can go in for a finisher that'll give you more recovery. By drinking lovely cans of neon here, you'll eventually be able to unlock new abilities and powers. But your main focus is going to be on being able to quickly kill enemies, regain your abilities to give you the edge, and of course not die from all the enemies trying to get you. In terms of the aesthetics, I do like the very neon, almost like comic book-ish kind of look to the environments themselves. With that said, my main issue that I had with Neon Beasts is that the gunplay felt a little bit on the basic side. Again, this is taken from a Kickstarter demo, but if you're hoping for kind of the same focus on mobility and just like push forward gameplay as something like Doom Eternal or Ultra Kill, it didn't feel like Neon Beasts was going that far. And the story is definitely a major push or a major reason to play it, but The levels themselves are built on like very wide open environments, which can make it very hard to figure out where you're supposed to go, especially when enemies start appearing all around you. So with Neon Beast, I would say that this is a game that does put style over substance. It has a great look to it, again, as you can see some of these environments, but I would like to have seen, or I would like to see more advances or more advanced gunplay to kind of get where this game is going to go and whether or not it's going to be more about being story driven or if the gunplay will kind of rise to the occasion like that. I would say if you can find a demo or when this game goes up on Steam, if you're looking for another very stylized FPS, give this one a check. But if you're hoping for, at least from what I played, more depth in terms of the actual gameplay or moment-to-moment side, this one may not be as neon-filled for you. We go from the bloody neon streets to a far more happier game. This is Road to Adventure. This is a 2D platformer, as you can tell, and this is one of those games that it feels like a early attempt or kind of like a first-timer take on platforming. We play as this mysterious boy here who has to, well, go out and stop an evil corporation from taking over. And the only way we're going to do that, just like in the old days, is to do platforming. So, if you've played any 2D platformer in the last like 20 to 30 years, then everything about Road to Adventure should be familiar to you. You run, you jump, you collect MacGuffins, and your goal is to make it to the end of each level and then move on to the next. Now, in terms of the general gameplay, nothing here felt like too over the top. The game really does love to throw these like very annoying enemies at you, as you can see with that fairy kind of tracking me. Kind of like the evil spawn of those Medusa heads and those hawks from Ninja Gaiden. But again, like, this is one of those games that what you see is completely what you get in terms of its gameplay. I would say that from an aesthetic point of view, in terms of both the graphics as well as kind of the UI, it is on the basic side, especially compared to just the sheer volume of 2D platformers that have been released. With the gameplay itself, like, there's nothing bad, I would say, about this, but at the same time, nothing that really stood out. As we've said before, like, 2D platformers is one of those genres that it becomes harder and harder with each passing year to make an example that goes above and beyond what everyone has already seen and done before. And I don't think Road to Adventure, sorry about that, gets to that level. It is on the cheaper side. I think it's only like $3, $4 or something like that. So if you are somebody looking for a good kind of like rainy day platformer or an entry level one, I would say at least give this one a check. But if you are somebody like me who's looking for more advanced platforming, more unique examples, Road to Adventure doesn't go that far. So, with that said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have 3 more games to look at for this week's showcase. As always, if you're interested in my thoughts on design, then be sure to check out my following books. For entry-level students, we have 20 Essential Games to Study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with free-to-play coming in 2022. We now turn to Frauki's Adventure. And this is definitely like the complete opposite of Road to Adventure that we just ended the last part in. This is, I guess the simplest way of describing this would be 2D Metroidvania Dark Souls. We are Frauki here, and there is evil afoot. And in order to save the land, we are going to go into a very, very large maze and fight our way through evil robots. So, the structure of this one is that the entire world is completely open. Your mission is to explore to find various MacGuffins, defeat the evil robots, and of course grow in power. So with the combat here, it is more on the advanced side. Like, I don't think it would hit like the heights of some like the more technical base 2D action games we've played. But this is a title where you have to really fight for every hit on enemies, as they're going to attack and do as much movement as they can to avoid hits. So a lot of the enemy encounters, especially with the robots, are a little bit more trickier compared to your other 2D action games. So just like with a Souls-like, your main form of progression will be unlocking new shortcuts, new routes through the levels. And of course you're looking for keys and other ways of moving forward. So my big problem with this game is that the huge world that this game has, there's no real sense of structure to it, in the sense that the level design is guiding the player around. This is one of those games where you may find a key in one corner of the map that opens up a door on the complete other end of the map. And of course, if you do get lost, you'll have to wander around, and dying will reset all the enemies. And unfortunately, that does make this one a tough game to recommend. I will say though that there is something intriguing about the general structure of it, and I do like this idea of an open or non-linear-ish kind of 2D action game. And this would be kind of like the complete opposite recommendation from the other game. Like, sometimes I seem to get games in a theme here. With Frauki's Adventure, if you are looking for an action-adventure game that is different in terms of its structure from some of the other ones that we've seen, then I would say give this one a check. But if you're hoping for one with kind of a better structure, or one that's a little bit more approachable in its design, then I don't think this game will be right for you. We now turn to something completely different. This is Siphonophore. And this is a very weird, I guess, title to say the least. It is a shooter mixed with emotional, like, Lovecraftian elements to it. Our goal is to essentially explore, I guess, the cosmic sea, trying to collect souls. The game is definitely not one that makes its goals apparently known. And while it has a very unique look to it and some very soothing music, you can hear it over my own soothing voice, the problem that this game has in a nutshell comes down to onboarding. The UX is, for lack of, I guess to put it bluntly, is terrible. It really doesn't give you any idea what you're supposed to be doing, what your actual goal is. That thing is screaming it wants souls, but it doesn't really tell you how you're supposed to be doing this. Are you just killing enemies? Are you supposed to be hitting some other button? You probably noticed there's 3 different bars and a radial gauge in the upper left. Still no idea what that means. And now something is transforming in the upper right. And this is one of those games that, again, it feels like it's trying to tell an interesting story or have unique gameplay systems, but at the end of the day, onboarding is always king. And it doesn't matter how original your game is, if people cannot figure out how to even play this game. And unfortunately, that's what kind of damned this game for me. We played it for about, I would say, like 20 to 30 minutes, give or take. And in that time, I didn't really feel like I was making any real headway in terms of goals. Not to mention the UI is all over the place in terms of what buttons you have to hit and what you are supposed to be doing. So this one, unfortunately, is a game I would have to say pass on if you're looking for something that is very much pick up and play. There may be something here if you are looking for something that's on the different side, but again, without those improvements to UX and approachability, I cannot recommend this game. For our final game of this week's Spotlight, this is Lucy Dreaming, and this is taken from a demo, as, well, Lucy just said right there. And by now you've probably figured out what genre this game is. This is kind of done in a classic adventure game format. If you've played Monkey Island or Maniac Mansion, then you should be right at home here. Your mission as Lucy is that she is trapped in her nightmare, and in order to get out, she's going to have to do what every young British girl will have to do, and that is solve an ever-increasing series of complicated adventure game-style puzzles. And with the gameplay here, again, this is your straight-up adventure format. Explore the environment, pick up anything and everything that isn't nailed down or has some use, and then use it to get through your various puzzles and then move on to the next area. The game has charm too. I think the pixel art has a good look to it, but I did have some trouble with the puzzles, and we did get stuck on it on stream. I couldn't figure out what I was missing. And this is a game that, again, that it is very much aimed specifically at adventure game fans. If you have no interest in the genre, Lucid Dreaming is not going to do anything that you haven't already seen before. For those of you who are more used to more the modern or contemporary adventure games like Wadget Eye and so on, this one definitely goes back, or at least a little bit further back, to the puzzle focus of, again, kind of like the LucasArts era of adventure games. So if you don't like solving crazy puzzles, this one probably won't be for you either. But if you enjoy those games, enjoy a adventure game that is a brain teaser, then Lucid Dreaming may have something for you. So with that said, we're going to wrap up this week's showcase here. I'd like to thank the developers who submitted games. As always, if you'd like me to tackle your game for a future stream and video, please reach out. Do all that liking and subscribing people tell you to do. Check out our Discord and Patreon link down below, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. And until next time, take care.